With the launch of the new Mavic 3 Classic, DJI now has a prosumer option that is more accessible to more people and is more reasonably priced. With the professional-grade 4/3 CMOS embedded in an improbable small size, the DJI MAVIC 3 Classic's iconic Hasselblad camera can capture amazing images. But there is so much more to it, so how about we check all of its stunning features out? Without a remote control, it costs almost half as much as the Mavic 3 Basic Fly More Combo, which has a suggested retail price of $1,469, while you can get it with DJI's RC N1 remote for $1,599. While the dual camera systems that set the Mavic 3 and 3 Cine apart from the competition are absent, you still get a strong drone with a lot to offer. Additionally, with the exception of its camera, smaller internal storage, and lack of Apple ProRes 422 HQ codec, the Classic has almost identical specifications to the premium Cine model. The Classic offers nearly all of the features of the ordinary Mavic 3 if you don't need the digital zooming capability of up to 28 times. Speaking of its distinguishing characteristics, the camera has the same design as earlier Mavic 3 models but lacks a telephoto lens on top. However, cruise control is a brand new feature that DJI added with this update. As the name implies, this maintains the drone's speed so that remote operators may concentrate on getting the photo rather than flying. On the other hand, the Classic is one step down from the Mavic 3 Standard and Cine variants and one step up from DJI's Air 2S, which has a 20-megapixel Type 1 CMOS sensor with a shorter flight time. Moving on, the DJI RC Remote, which debuted and ships with the Mavic 3 Cine, the DJI RC and RC N1 are all compatible with the Mavic 3 Classic in terms of remote controls. The Classic is being offered by DJI as a standalone item with the understanding that the majority of customers already have one of these remotes. Also, many DJI drone models, including the Mini 2, Air 2S, and Mini 3 Pro, and regular Mavic 3 come with an RC N1. The DJI RC retails for $309, the RC Pro is $1,199, and the RC N1 is included with these models. Honestly, this is the drone that DJI ought to have introduced last year. Operating a drone with a fully functional camera, free from the early Mavic 3 model's teething problems, makes a significant difference. In comparison to when a user initially flew the Cine test unit a year ago, he also noted that the colors are considerably more eye-catching, realistic, and bright. This, of course, then implies that the updates to the firmware and ongoing development have undoubtedly improved the situation. And let's not forget that the 20-megapixel 4/3 camera on the Mavic 3 Classic with its 24mm equivalent wide-angle lens appears to be able to catch more light and finer details, as well as the photos from dusk, is sharp and clear. The sun will also start to appear as a starburst at an aperture of 4.5 as it approaches the horizon. An advanced camera and lens are often needed for this effect. It is still possible to digitally zoom in up to 3 times while capturing video. It's challenging to find complaints about the Mavic 3's footage. The drone records in 5.1K at up to 50 frames per second or 4K at up to 120 frames per second, either H.264 or H.265. It has a variable rate option and can deliver video at up to 200 megabits per second. Let's just say that the 10-bit D-Log offered by DJI is an improvement above the 8-bit log provided by the Evo Lite Plus. In contrast to DJI's regular in-drone image, the camera's HLG, Hybrid Log Gamma mode, offers the chance of more colorful photographs. This type of video can be handled by FCP and Premiere. The preview in FCP will appear completely blown, but don't panic. Select the Record 2022 color override in the clip options. The results are compelling, although it must be acknowledged that using DJI's default profile, which is not awful, still feels like additional labor is introduced to the editing workflow. Not to forget, other aircraft have used DJI's pilot assistance, and the Mavic 3 Classic's APAS 5.0 is excellent. A noteworthy feature here is object avoidance, which avoids obstacles rather than stopping at them. On a shrub, we experimented with the normal and nifty settings. In both instances, it hopped over it and continued without going back to the previous level. The nifty mode also came dangerously close, but that is the point, and having the option is beneficial. We also enjoy the fact that DJI has been enhancing the subject tracking and smart shot features of the Mavic 3 over time by including modes like HLG and D-Log. These kinds of elements frequently urge you to create the typical profile. Then again, the drone performs flawlessly and endures strong winds with little damage. But Active Track may initially fail to lock on when used on a boat and will notify you via a pop-up message that only vehicles and people are eligible for tracking. Again, even if JPEG plus RAW is selected in your settings, capturing a panorama may result in it just appearing as a JPEG file on your memory card, so try to keep an eye out for that. Another small issue that we had hoped would have been handled by this point is how long it takes the aircraft and remote to connect during a cold flight. A chilly flight is an initial takeoff after around 1 day or 24 hours. According to a review, it took between 3 and 10 minutes for the Classic to establish a connection with enough satellites and receive the GPS signal required for a safe takeoff during the first 2 days of operation. The 2 subsequent flights with the new battery were nearly instantly operational. A user has also observed that when flying at night, they must calibrate the compass before each trip because of the cold. This might be a flaw in the review unit, but at least the compass was promptly calibrated. Speaking of nighttime flights, someone attempted to photograph the Aurora Borealis using the Mavic 3 Classic, which has an 8-second shutter. Although there was some wind and it wasn't really noticeable to the human eye, the user was thrilled with a slightly fuzzy photo that captured color, according to the review. The gimbal clamp represents one small change though. A more durable and adaptable design that was simpler to slip over the front and attach on top was introduced by DJI last year. The majority of it is still the same, but the clamp is positioned differently, making it a little more challenging to hold, and it also feels a little flimsier. So, who's the DJI MAVIC 3 Classic for? Well, the MAVIC 3 Classic bridges the gap between amateur and expert drone photographers, which was desperately required. The MAVIC 2 Pro, the MAVIC 3's predecessor, arrived in September 2018 for $1,449 and came with a remote to which a smartphone could be attached. Starting at $2,049 is the corresponding standard MAVIC 3. The latter's release came as a shock to some who wanted to upgrade but couldn't afford the cost. Similarly, DJI's own Air 2S is a good option for those on a tighter budget, but it has a fixed aperture camera and a shorter battery life of around 31 minutes. For those who desire the advantages of a bigger sensor, longer battery life, and variable aperture for increased creative options, the Classic is a sensible next step up. Basically, a great backup and companion drone for the regular or Cine variants is the MAVIC 3 Classic. Although you won't have a telephoto lens at your disposal, you can still fulfill a client's request for photos taken with a camera that has a 4/3 sensor and the HNCS color profile. This brings us to our next question of whether or not you should invest in the DJI MAVIC 3 Classic or not. The fact that we enjoy the MAVIC 3 Classic won't come as a huge surprise. After all, we enjoyed the MAVIC 3, and this drone is essential, well, somewhat the same, with the same top-notch camera. Many creatives might even find it useful that there isn't a confusing, inferior camera there. In this case, if you use the zoom, you'll be able to tell that it's digital, and we all know what that means. The DJI Fly app seems to have developed recently, but we'd prefer to see waypoints implemented in different ways than the basic one in hyperlapse. Sadly, it appears that they are becoming less popular, otherwise we didn't feel that the product was limiting us. Although there is no weight or regulatory advantage over the MAVIC 3 and both have all the current smart capabilities, this drone is ultimately more dependent on price than any other. To save $450 or 330 pounds compared to the hybrid zoom version, you must decide whether you want to. Our advice is to ask yourself, will I ever actually do any survey work? Well, that was our shot at being humorous. Additionally, if not, it appears that the answer is straightforward, but we would still advise checking the price of the Autel EVO Nano Lite Plus, which provides much of the same functionality for even cheaper, albeit with a 1-inch sensor. However, we have no hesitation in recommending this more reasonably priced MAVIC 3 Classic for creatives who operate in all lighting circumstances. There is also a lot to be argued for this being a reasonably cost backup for busy professionals who don't want to take chances given the option to purchase without a controller. That's all from our end today. While we would recommend you choose the best option for yourself, do let us know what you think of this product in the comments below. Don't forget to catch us soon by making sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Take care.